bread. And each and every day as we break bread together, we do a couple of things. We save the seat at the head of our table for you, our guest of honor. It is a great privilege to have you here joining us. I'm going to direct you to Facebook Live, where you can join us with eyes and ears. Just go to Ramon Valadez 67, and you can find what we are up to here and now. That is, of course, because it's Monday, and every Monday, Pima County Supervisor Ramon Valadez joins us on his powerful tour to the positive side of not only politics, but Pima County. It's a thrill, a pleasure, and an honor to be here regularly joining on these airwaves with him. It's an honor, further still, to have been called to make these programs available and on YouTube Live at 10:30 The Voice, where you can also join us by glimpsing in. 520-790-2040 is our telephone number, and this is KVOI, where we are your trusted local news and talk. And we say, Ramon Valadez, my friend, Pima County Supervisor, welcome.
Thank you, Jennifer, so much for the opportunity, and really appreciate being here.
It's a hot day. It's been a hot weekend, and yet somehow I feel revived and refreshed just being in the same space with you.
Well, I appreciate that. I feel the same way about being in the space with you and our special guest.
We have a very special guest today. Patrick Robles is here in the studios with us, the newest member of your staff at the Pima County Supervisor's Office.
Yes, absolutely. He's spent the last 3 summers with us, and he did such a wonderful and fabulous job that we figured we'd bring him on part-time as he's going to school at the University of Arizona.
Patrick, welcome. You've
Good
been with us before,
everybody.
and I have to tell you, we are so proud of you. Just a few short months ago, you were president of the student body at Sunnyside High School, and now you are officially serving your community in ways that we just have to salute you for, because we were talking in the car on the way over here. This is not an easy thing to do. You are choosing to serve, and in very much like first responders or the military, you are undertaking something that people might not understand is as serious a commitment as you could possibly make. And you're making a serious commitment to your community in many ways, myriad ways. And we're grateful for you doing that. And as a young person, I have to ask you, what is it that motivates you?
Well, first off, Jennifer, I'd like to thank you for those great comments. I mean, what keeps me motivated is that we're going to inherit a world, and somebody needs to be responsible for what direction we're going to take this world, take this community, and how we're going to treat people. Because right now, this world isn't as beautiful as we'd like it to be. And so I feel a sense of responsibility to stay informed, to make sure those that are feeling down come back up again, and make sure that young people have a seat at the decision-making table, because like I had just said at the beginning of this comment, we're inheriting this world. It's not going to, our parents aren't going to be responsible for the responsibilities that they have right now. I'm going to end up taking up those responsibilities. And that's what keeps me motivated. I mean, this is our world.
That's well said. And it's an eye-opener, I'm going to guess, for a lot of people that are tuning in, because I think the millennial generation, and then your generation, which is the generation Gen Z they're calling, that you guys, there's a generally, and I hate to be monolithic about this, but there's a bad rap.
Yep, there is a bad rap. I mean, everybody thinks we're lazy. People think we're dumb, or we don't know what we're talking about, or we're
because you're on
cynical.
video games or the computer or the phone or the iPad or the fill in the blank.
Yes, look, each generation has its unique capabilities, its unique enhancements, because each generation is entering a world with different tools and different ways to guide themselves, and they're just additional tools, in my opinion, that help us guide this world.
Before we broaden the conversation out, you said that it's important for someone young to have a seat at the decision-making table.
Absolutely.
It's also important to have someone of your generation's voice with a seat in the conversation.
Yes, couldn't agree more.
Before a conversation becomes a decision, there has to be a community and a culture of respect and exchange of ideas. How do you feel that the current climate in Pima County and in Arizona exists that makes you hopeful that that can occur, or needs your help changing so that can occur?
So look, it's not news to me that we live in a divisive climate right now. Communities are divided because folks disagree with each other. Now, that's when young people stand up and say this isn't right, that we're not going to stand for this. I believe as a young leader, I've noticed that when I do add my voice to the conversation, folks tend to listen a little bit more. So when we see a divisive community, like we see at the moment, that's when it takes a whole lot of young people to say, we're not going to stand for this. We want to see some compromise.
And just look at like the Douglas students in Florida who, after the disastrous, traumatic shooting there,
Absolutely,
took matters into their own hands, and they are now a political force to be reckoned with nationally.
And that's what it's all about. People listen to young people. So young people need to use that momentum and change what they believe needs to be changed for the betterment of this world and this community.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being here with us, joining at this table, joining us in this conversation, and for your incredible service, your commitment to service, because your
Thank
career
you.
will be a long one, and the road ahead is really bright and unlimited in its possibilities. But for you to share this time with us, it really is a remarkably inspiring and hope-producing lift for me. It makes me awfully happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Pima County Supervisor Ramon Valadez, welcome back.
Thank you, Jennifer. How are you?
This kid is amazing.
I know.
I mean, I hate to say this kid. This young leader is amazing. He's become a member of your staff, and thank you for bringing him here today.
Oh, absolutely. He's, as you recall, he was here about a month or two ago, and he contributed a good amount to that show, and I just figured that it was a really good opportunity to bring him back.
So every week, we start the week out with this hour making a trajectory for us for the week. And our hope is that by producing and broadcasting everything that we share on this time together, that it goes out and lifts us up and then sends us off on a really awesome week, that we really are all together sort of heading up and beyond and outwards and upwards. Part of the reason we do that is because you come with a concept that we don't know about before you get here. And it is always a synchronous idea that dovetails. So I prepare something, you prepare something, and we don't know what the other prepares. And we have a lot of faith that we shop at the same crystal ball store, I think, and we look and see where we're headed and what we need to share. And it's part of the inspiration and motivation that sort of drives us. And so I'm going to ask you, what are we talking about this week?
Well, today's word and the thought is really generosity. And here's what I'm talking about. If you really think about those people when we think of generosity, oftentimes we think of a charitable donation or write a check or donate in the pot. And certainly that's part of being generous, but beyond being generous, I want people to think about this way. I read a blog post by Dr. John C. Maxwell, who I've mentioned a number of times in this broadcast, who really talked about Mr. Rogers and Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. And when we often think of generosity, we think of, okay, it's a one-time transaction. Mm-hmm. Think about this. I just said Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Who doesn't know Mr. Rogers' neighborhood?
And who doesn't love it?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
love
think
him.
Think of the members. I mean, you, me, Patrick, you and
Yes.
Patrick. But think about the seeds he sowed. And that's really what I mean by generosity. Mm-hmm. He sowed seeds that he never lived to see, but he sowed seeds nonetheless. And we are all better because he was a seed sower. So when I talk about generosity, I'm talking about the fact that we need to sow seeds And the saying goes, regardless of whether or not we're going to live to see the shade from that tree.
You want to know what the word I picked for today is?
What's that?
You're going to laugh when you hear this. Inspiration. What you're talking about is being free and open and generous with those things that inspire. I want you to think when you just use the word transaction, sort of like that's the exchange. Something occurs and there is an exchange. I describe it this way. You're hungry and I make cheeseburgers. You've got $5. You come to my place. I make you a cheeseburger, a delicious, juicy cheeseburger, kind of like the ones they make over at the Box Yard. If you've not been to the Box Yard, you should go to the Box Yard because the cheeseburgers at BXQ are remarkable. They're delicious. So, and they take a little bit of that smoky brisket and they chop it up and they add it to the ground beef, and then they make a burger that's got like a little bit of a barbecue taste built in because they've smoked the meat. So I want you to imagine this juicy cheeseburger. I give you that cheeseburger that I've made for you with a great deal of intention. You give me the $5. That's the transaction. But the second layer of transaction that we're talking about today, I'm being in my role as a host, tapping into the essence of generosity, not because we have a quid pro quo exchange. It's that there's always a secondary exchange if you're generous. If you're generous, I will give you something extra with that transaction. In my hope and in my heart, the intention is to inspire you. So in addition to the cheeseburger, I'm gifting you inspiration. And if you are open to receiving that, you will, in addition to a juicy cheeseburger, walk away thinking in a fresh way about the inspiration that you will walk off with. And it will change how you think about the rest of your day or the kinds of, you don't know what the inspiration will be, but it's the dividend. It's the transactional dividend. It's the transactional inspiration, but it's not just about transactions that involve money. It's transactional inspiration that can come from any source, so long as you're generous. And that's how we tie together.
Very much so, actually. We think of, when we've heard about sowing seeds in the harvest, those are obviously in the good book, but when we think about it in practice, those people who have really had a significance in life have been those that have been generous, who have sowed seeds, regardless of who was going to harvest or have the harvest. They sowed those seeds with their generosity. We all benefit.
To build on your idea of generosity, however, though, if you think about the world sort of being broken down into things that are love or a lack of love, generosity comes from this just broad, universal love that we all have, because if you believe, if you treat others the way you want to be treated, it's because we are all the same. We are all one. We're really the same. We're not different at all. And if you're the kind of person who says, what's in it for me, and you're receiving it, taking it without the gratitude, without the inspiration piece, it's very easy to imagine how that energy or that intention keeps hitting a brick wall. When you talk about sowing the seeds, you're talking about sowing them in a place where there is room for them to grow. Will you talk a little bit more about knowing how and where to sow the seeds? And do they have to be well site selected? Like we drove by those fantastic new soccer fields. That was a site selection. It was a great choice, brilliant site selection. Do you have to choose where you sow your seeds, and does that matter?
Well, I'll tell you what, when we're talking about sowing seeds, then they might matter, even in the biblical terms, which we can go into in a little bit. But when we're talking about being generous and that being the sowing of our seed, think about this, okay? Does it matter that you're generous towards somebody who might not give it back to you? No. Does it matter that you have been generous to somebody that you will never see again? No. So
then you're not generous because you expect something in return.
Correct.
That's real generosity.
You're generous because simply you want to give of yourself to others. No, it doesn't really matter who you're generous with, so long as you are generous as a person. In truth, some of the things that we're doing through the show in terms of how we're trying to reach out and give positivity, give messaging, give actionable items, but really to have a positive impact on the lives of people is along those same lines, because it's why I love doing the show, because we can have that positive impact and we can be generous that way. So as I started, when I said the first we think about it being a transaction of money, but it's so much greater than that, because our greatest gifts are really on the inside. And when we give of those, then our gift is great.
You are listening to AM 1030 The Voice, trusted local news and talk. We are at, I'm going to guess, 122 and some change. And we are going to be taking a very quick break. We would love to hear from you, 520-790-2040. Join us on Facebook Live at Ramon Valadez 67 or on the YouTube live feed at 1030 The Voice. Patrick Robles is here with us, as is our good friend, Pima County Supervisor Ramon Valadez. We are coming back and hope that you join us so we can not only lift up together, but send the week off in totally the right direction. And I promise, I've been told the rain is coming, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right. Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's 1:25 p.m., and this is Around the Table, live from the city of gastronomy, breaking bread with the most interesting and influential tastemakers, lawmakers, newsmakers, style makers, movers and shakers, foodies and friends, saving you a seat at the head of our table each and every week as we gather together here on AM 1030 The Voice for conversations and conviviality. We save the seat at the head of our table. And if you go to Facebook Live right now and you go to Ramon Valadez 67, you can see how much fun we're having here today. We would encourage you to join us and join the conversation. And we are as well on YouTube Live at 1030 The Voice, and 1030 are the numbers, the numerals 1030 The Voice. Patrick Robles is our special guest. He's in the studio with us today.
Hi, everybody.
How are you? And welcome back, Pima County Supervisor Ramon Valadez. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
All right, so I have a quick question, because I hate to exploit the fact that you are a young person, but not only are you a young person, but you're really articulate, you're totally plugged in, and you're doing it. You're out there, you're making things happen. I think it was a week ago when the New York Times was reporting that ICE was coming to do some things potentially.
Yes, the mass deportations.
You took to the airwaves online.
Yes.
And I imagined you, and bear with me here.
Okay.
Because I'm from Boston originally. And, there were a lot of legends out of the New England area in the Revolutionary War. And there was an old story. There's a guy named Paul Revere. And Paul Revere was really famous for getting on his horse and, doing the midnight ride of Paul Revere. And he rode from place to place to warn people. There's something about the spirit of that is, I think, getting a little bit lost in this moment in time. And yet you are living that spirit. I want to salute you for that. Salute you for the spirit of Paul Revere.
Thank you very much.
In a contemporary time and place. How do you know to do that? You just did it. And you did it fearlessly, it looked like. And it was late at night. I mean, it's not like,
it was like
it's not like anything's in it for you. And
No.
so when on the topic today of generosity, you weren't doing that saying, what's in it for me?
No.
Talk a little bit about this, because I have to think it's one of the most impressive things I've seen anybody do of any age ever.
Thank you. So let's look at newspaper sales and ratings on TV when it comes to watching cable news and the nightly news. They're all down, especially in the age, with the range of ages, like 18 years old. I'm trying to put into terms here, but amongst 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 19-year-olds.
What are your peers watching, reading, and doing?
They're not, they're not watching the nightly news, or they're not reading the newspaper. They're getting their news from social media, from Twitter, looking up hashtags. And so I figured folks aren't going to tune in to CBS News or ABC News to see what's going on like I do. I love watching MSNBC or tuning into the
Listen, you were
nightly news
watching the
every day.
debates like they were the World Series.
Oh yeah, it was that level of excitement for me. And so I figured that I should use the fact that I do like to tune in to get folks to know what's going on, because I know they may not very well be reading the Daily Star like I do every morning. And so I kind of put in my words so that they can relate to it and understand what's going on.
It's almost as if the translations that you're making into a dialect is a brand new dialect. It's a dialect of comprehension, of context, of perspective, of this moment in time that comes uniquely from where you're at. It's fascinating, but it's incredible to me that you know to do this.
Thank you.
Ramon Valadez, I have to ask you, when you and I talk each week, and we have a theme, and this week's theme is generosity. What does it mean to you to see generosity in action? And where in our community do you see generosity in action? And how do you define generosity in action in Pima County?
You know, I will tell you that I see it all the time. We are a phenomenal community, and I talked about this in public before. When you saw back when Katrina hit, and you saw the generosity, the unity, just the uniqueness of Tucson, come together, find a place for people to be able to live out at least a portion of their life so that they could have some level of dignity, and just step up. We've seen that again over and over. We saw that when after the horrible day in January, when a congresswoman was shot. We saw this community come together, and just the generosity of spirit, not just in the material things, but really in coming together and being there for each other. I think it was a very traumatic time for a lot of people, myself included on that one. And so a lot of people just came out and supported each other. We're there for each other. We're hugging each other. We're giving of each other.
In moments like that, heroes step up. Heroes in our midst do exactly what you're talking about. Heroes in our midst rise at the moment they're called upon. And they do it with selfless generosity. Think of the heroes in our midst. People who rise to the challenge, rise to the moment, give without asking what's in it for me. These are the people who help to define and redefine what it is to be happy.
You know, Jennifer,
Here.
when I think of heroes in our midst, 2 years ago we organized back at Sunnyside a drive to donate money to the victims of the Puerto Rico hurricane. And the student council went around telling them what was going on. There was no winner for, if a class donated so much money, they wouldn't get a pizza party. We just told them what was going on. We ended up raising $1,500 for those folks in Puerto Rico. And there was no in it for those students who donated. This was some of their pocket change. This was their lunch money. Those are heroes in our midst.
Yeah.
Folks willing to just go out of their time of day to contribute to a cause.
When we were starting the conversation out today, and we were kind of, we don't try, it's not, I want you to imagine it this way. It's like verbal shaking of Christmas presents that are wrapped. We do the equivalent of like shaking the Christmas present. We shake it a little bit. We try and imagine what's in there. Is that Legos or is it a puzzle? Is that socks? Or is it something else? So we kind of talk a little bit. We don't give up too much. And I had suggested a topic that's really in the news and on my mind. And you were kind of coy about the fact that it might or it might not fit in with our conversation today. And of course, the topic that I had brought up was service and how anyone in service, from first responders to our military, to our government officials, to yourself and your fellow Pima County supervisors, on all sides of all issues, on every side of the aisle, that in such a challenging time as these, that Patrick has astutely pointed out, is divisive. Why would somebody choose to serve? Why did Pat Tillman, after 9/11, choose to serve and pay the ultimate sacrifice? How can you explain to someone the kind of intrinsic, universal, essential generosity that calls from within and prompts someone to take a step into the realm of public service of any kind, first responders, military, etc., politics, especially politics, where it is a tough game. And you have to be really thick-skinned or aware and awoken to be able to withstand the attacks, the acrimony, etc. And when we're talking about what on earth has to happen to make a bright young person like Patrick want to come and serve. And you were suggesting that maybe or maybe not, this is going to dovetail with generosity, and I'm going to let you follow up on this concept.
And part of it is, think about, we haven't dealt with the issue of significance yet. And Dr. Maxwell and some of the other national and international figures have
matter. It matters.
It's significance isn't really determined by what you have, it's what you give. Mm-hmm. And let me say that again, it's not determined by what you have, it's determined by what you give. Take for example, Mr. Rogers, who we talked about earlier. He gave of himself, and he made an impression on children of multiple generations.
Right.
But he had that significance because of that generosity. In biblical terms, we talk about filling the gap. Whether that's a first responder or a military, and I'll leave it there. Sometimes what they do is a calling. It really and truly is. It's in their spirit, it's in their heart to be generous, to stand up for, to stick up for, to protect, and to work on the behalf of others. And that's all in the area of generosity, but also in the area of significance. Again, understanding significance being what we give of ourselves. But oftentimes these are individuals that will fill the gap and stand in the gap. Patrick referred to them as heroic, and he was absolutely right. They're absolutely heroic because they stand in the gap for others who may or may not be able to.
Heroic suggests sort of big and sweeping and intimidating, and gosh, do I really want to be a hero today? The best way to be a hero today is to take it not into the 35,000 feet flying over Tucson level, but at your desk. Maybe you're at the insurance company right now and you're listening to us. Maybe you're in the car on your way to pick up your kids from camp or school. Maybe you are someone who is thinking, how I have no money. How can I be generous? Sometimes the generosity shows up in a small act for which you expect nothing in return. And I think, of course, because last week we had the new executive director of Ben's Bells. How do you explain something like the concept of Ben's Bells and the mission of kindness? How does the mission of kindness, which is born in Tucson, represent an actionable dimension of generosity? And what other kinds of things could somebody do just in a really personal, one-on-one kind of way to become a hero today?
And I'll tell you what, I've been very, very careful not to apply a magnitude or a size to the generosity because there can't be.
Right.
You will notice that a lot of times the things we most consider generous are the tiniest of little things, but those are the ones that mean most. So please don't attach generosity to being these huge or thing. We use the word heroic. You can be a hero to one person. Mm-hmm. You can be significant to a child, a baby, your family. So I would suggest that when you think about and tying in inspiration with gratitude and generosity, especially for those of us who have families and we're coming home, be generous to your spouse. Be generous to your children. Be generous to your neighbors. Be generous to people that are around you, because you never know what it is you're truly giving, because it may just be just a small little thing to us, and oftentimes is. But you know how many times we get approached with, we get you know, that one smile, that one hello, that one encouragement you gave me made all the difference, because maybe they're having a bad day And because you said hello and asked them how they were doing, all of a sudden you just turned around their day. And what's going to happen there? Remember we talked about a harvest. Well, the next person they run into, they're going to be really nice too because you were nice to them. So the harvest isn't ours, but it's there.
How do we do this without an expectation? How do we do this by and concurrently surrendering an expectation of an outcome? How do we become the most authentic in our generosity, and consequent gratitude? But this is a conversation about generosity today. How do we let go of a specific outcome? How do we surrender so that when we put it out there, whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen? How do we let the part of our human expectations let go?
Don't be emotionally attached to the outcome. Don't expect, and I think we've talked a little bit about in previous broadcasts. Really, part of the issue that we all have a lot of times is we get disappointed because we have an expectation. And when we don't have an expectation, you're never going to be disappointed. So don't be generous with an expectation. Be generous because we should.
Right. And just asking folks, hey, how are you? Or just telling them good morning makes all the difference. Just keep that mindset within yourself that, I want to treat somebody the way I want to be treated. This morning I said good morning to a lady I never seen in my life. Next thing to find out, she was lost. She didn't know where she was going. Just saying that leads on to a different level of interaction that person may have needed.
Yeah,
it all adds up.
And going on to Patrick, because he's absolutely right. Dr. Maxwell often says in a previous podcast about a month ago, he said this, and this has stuck with me. He said, if you want to lead, if you want to have significance, and here's the story. Here's what he said. Be the first to help. Be the first to help. There's no expectation in it. Be the first to help.
In any realm.
In any realm.
Large or small. Comfort zone. No comfort zone. Even if you don't know how to help.
Mm-hmm.
Think of the stories that Patrick is telling us. He's exactly talking about that exact lesson. Be the first to help.
Mm-hmm.
That's true generosity in action. AM 1030, The Voice. Trusted local news and talk. This is 1:41 p.m. You've got me lulled now into this consideration of how are we going to bring this to life? How are we going to be generous today? How are we going to experience what it means to lift everybody up? This, to me, is the astonishing power of that one small act, that one divine, sparking kind of put it out there kind of thing. Ben's Bells urges us to be kind, right?
Absolutely. It's an incredible organization that really gives credit to people who are generous.
Right.
People who sow seeds all across this community, sometimes never expecting to see the harvest. And it says thank you.
And we're going to sow some seeds right now in the hopes that when we come back, you will glimpse something in your own world today where you can be the first to help, where you can be called on without a trumpet or a clarion to do so. This is Around the Table live from the City of Gastronomy. And I want to say, before we take this quick break, congratulations to the Gastronomic Union of Tucson. They had a phenomenal dinner last night. We'll talk about that on the other side of this break. Stay with us. You are listening to KVOI. We'll be right back. 1:47 p.m. and this is Around the Table live from the City of Gastronomy, tuned into AM 1030 The Voice, where you can see us, be with us, chat with us, join us on YouTube Live at 1030 The Voice, and most importantly, every Monday in this first hour of the week, where we send the week off with our intention of trajectory for positivity. And I want you to imagine that someone's not only got your back, but they're lifting you up. And when you lift up without any kind of, hang on. There we go. Sorry about that, Chief. When you are doing that without the expectation of whatever the outcome is, you have a boundless, limitless opportunity. Ramon Valadez joins us talking on the topic today of generosity. I love that. Patrick Robles is here as well.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi, welcome back. So, I know. He's got such a great voice. I love that. I could listen to you all day. Hey, listen, everybody. We're talking about generosity. I want to open the phone lines up because I want to hear from people on Facebook and on the telephone. 520-790-2040. Where are you seeing generosity in action in Pima County? Who are you watching? What's going on? Big things, small things, family things. Maybe you just want to say thanks, Mom. Maybe you just want to say something. I experienced something. Someone was kind to me today. Someone was generous to me today. I know we would love to hear from you. Where is this actually happening? Because I happen to think that this community is one where there is enormous, intrinsic, essential, organic generosity. I saw it for myself firsthand last night because the Gastronomic Union of Tucson had their second of 3 dinners at the Carriage House right behind Downtown Kitchen and Cocktails. The Gastronomic Union of Tucson is an organization. It's basically a club. It's a very loose club. It's basically all the chefs in town, from every restaurant in town, from everything from the Parish to Mountain Oyster Club, and it all takes place at the Carriage House. So Devin Sanders kind of, sort of wrapped his arms around this whole thing and invited everybody to come and join him. He wants everybody to come and participate. So last night, I think we had like 30 chefs who did this incredible dinner. And I don't know any city anywhere in the world or the country where every chef in town basically comes together and makes a meal to raise money, okay? And that's what was done. And so last night was the Timewarp Dinner, where they took the iconic foods from each era or decade, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. But the thing that's remarkable about it is everyone was generous. And the chefs tapped into their natural talents, their natural instincts, their natural gifts, and they brought what they had. In a sense, it's a stone soup because everybody brings what they have. But it was more than that because they were all practicing their art and their gift at the highest level. There's one more of these dinners in August. I want to say, I think it's the 25th, but I'll check the date on that. But you get to see these remarkable practitioners of the culinary arts in action with collegiality, making an evening of conviviality and hospitality, showcasing, not showing off, having a laugh, but being generous. I saw it in action because this time of year when everybody's sort of either back home or busy or doing their summer vacation thing, they have the time to do this. I saw that last night, and every one of the couple hundred people that were in attendance that paid money to this organization to do this so that they could raise the funds. I want to tell you that everybody there last night, they were there being generous and were rewarded. They didn't go there and entertain an effectuated generosity because they got something from it. Everyone came with that right attitude of generosity that expected nothing in return. It was just, the reward was the act of making the generosity shared. That was just one example, and that's going on all over town. What do you have, Ramon, Patrick? Each of you, do you have something that maybe happened this weekend or something that you saw that you can share with us about how generosity is alive and well in this community?
This weekend, I participated in an act of generosity. I guess I don't want to talk about it, but that's what comes to mind. We're working at the men's homeless shelter right there off of Benson Highway, and here you had Michael Guyman from the Tucson Chamber of Commerce. He was there. You had Rich Mayorga, who was Teacher of the Year back in 2004, met the president and the whole thing, and you had a Vietnam War vet. I mean, these were all busy guys who had stuff to do later that evening, but decided to come together, make a good meal for these homeless men. It was pork chops, and it was delicious. And, the middle of the day, it was over 100-degree weather. And, that's the kind of generosity that comes to mind that I saw this week. And just busy folks taking time out of their day to help those who aren't so busy and who need that extra hand.
I saw it Saturday at Charo Del Rey when Gary Hickey and the team held a literally impromptu last-minute fundraiser for raising money for the repairs of Manza School that has an incredible garden and culinary program that had been vandalized.
Right, terrible.
And there was an urgent need to remedy the damage before the kids came back from school. And we all felt the need, let's make this happen. It just so happens that it was also Ray Flores' 50th birthday. We want to say happy birthday, Ray.
Happy birthday, Ray.
And they made it a birthday party / fundraiser. They had an incredible meal, and they raised money to make all the repairs. Another expression of the generosity of this town. How do you imagine being generous if it's not so obvious? If someone says, hey, come to my fundraiser, come. When you were saying before, the context, with giving without an expectation, be the first one to help. How do you know when help is needed? What are some of the things that you've read that help you know that the moment is now for you to act?
Sometimes you don't. Oftentimes we actually look for exactly the right moment to give, exactly the right moment to help, exactly the right moment to stand up, exactly the right moment to speak. I mean, we're all guilty of it, every one of us, myself included. But, you know, oftentimes we need to remember that a bad plan put into action is still 100 times better than the perfect plan that has no action to it. So oftentimes it's, don't expect to know. You're not going to know. So just do it.
Wanda's called in. She joins us now. Hi, Wanda.
Hi. I'm a first-time listener, and I was just sort of hoping and praying for someone to talk to because something sort of, lit a bonfire under me this morning about children being left in cars.
Oh.
And I thought, how can I do to start people getting knowledge about, thinking about it, having little signs put up or bumper stickers or news on, just add it to a little news on the radio every once in a while. So people forget. And that's what happens. And I heard this story about a guy in New York who left his twins in the backseat of his car.
What a tragedy.
Yes, and I have another thing that really gets to me is because they passed a law where you cannot have your child seat in the front. Now, when my son was young, his car seat was right next to me, so I knew exactly what was happening. And maybe it wasn't the safest place, but I wasn't likely to leave him in the car.
Out of sight, out of mind. Wanda, I want to say two things. First of all, thank you so much for finding us. Thank you so much for listening and being so generous to call. There. Thank you for taking time out.
I'll be a listener from now on. I'm a first-time listener.
Well, thank you.
And I was just looking I was looking for you.
Well, you want to know what?
What?
The universe works in mysterious ways, and I don't believe there are any accidents. And if there is someone today who is hearing this and is reminded to just glimpse in the mirror, look in the back seat, where do you... we asked the question, have you got your keys, you got your purse? Where's the car seat? Where's the baby carrier? Where's your kid? If somebody listens, I want to thank you for being generous and calling today.
Word on the radio or on the television, just as if someone's going out the door with his child in the back seat. I don't blame these people because I know everybody has a lot on their mind, especially if you have twins.
Oh yeah,
that's a job in itself. But he has to go to work, and maybe his wife had to go to work, and now he's crying.
Yeah.
When I saw him on television, and he is likely to be prosecuted for murder.
Oh. Wanda, I can't thank you enough for tuning in and listening in. Be sure to call again. I love your point of view, and I know that I speak for Patrick and Ramon for joining our conversation and for joining us here at the table. We've only got a couple of minutes, not even a minute left. Patrick, I wanted to give you the last word in a sense about inspiration and inspiring people to be generous. Our message, our mission today.
Look, folks, you are responsible for getting the job done, and whatever that job is. Walk down the street and ask yourself, what can I do? What can I do to make this community a better community? Ask yourself that. I mean, look around. We don't live in a perfect world. If there's trash to pick up that bag of potato chips, throw it in the trash. I mean, at the end of the day, generosity comes with that feeling of responsibility. Your responsibility to get stuff done leads to generosity because you're then extending that helping hand to get the job done.
Ramon Valadez, Pima County Supervisor, last word.
He's absolutely right. Generosity is significant. It can be small. It can be large. Whatever you do, be generous to somebody today.
And be the first to help. And when you get home, do me a favor. Hug your kids. Count your blessings and show them by example what it means to be generous. We'll be back with more right after this.